Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special winnerscoming.net interview with Cynthia Addai-Robinson of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power fame. Hey, Cynthia, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Not bad at all. Let's just jump right in here. Thanks for talking to us, first of all. I'm Dan. My dog's in the back there. Scruffy been sitting on the pillows. Kind of blends in. So the second season of The Rings of Power is now airing. Congrats. I'll start
Thank
with a
you.
pretty general question. Now that you already have one season under your belt, how did filming this new season compare to the first? Was it easier, harder, less, more stressful?
It's so hard to compare because on the one hand, you have the continuation, you kind of get to come back in a second season and your character, you've had time to kind of, fuse yourself with them, so to speak. But we did our first season under very different circumstances in New Zealand.
Mhm.
I got to New Zealand at the end of 2020, so lockdown, height of the pandemic, working away in New Zealand in a sort of bubble and sort of heading into the unknown in a lot of ways. And so the second time around, we filmed in the UK. We moved locations. And so we kind of, it wasn't starting over by any means, but we had a lot of sort of new additions to our fellowship, as it were. And just an opportunity to work in a different environment, different circumstances. So I don't think it's really about easier, harder, better, worse. It's just you sort of take each scenario and sort of find the things that are useful to you, helpful to you, and adapt quickly when you need to. And I think again there was that benefit of not only knowing our own characters, but really having the bond with one another. I think there's that sort of shorthand and chemistry, and I feel like it's really noticeable. I think when you see us as a collective, you can really see that we are this sort of, crazy family, crazy cast of characters. And we've been through a journey. I mean, this has sort of been 4 years for me between the two seasons. That's high school. That's a long time to really bond with a group and work almost like a troupe, even with people that you don't necessarily share scenes or screen time with. So we've all sort of had this journey together, and it's allowed us to not only do this work and tell this story, but in the process, see the world, meeting fans the world over. And so it's great. I'm just appreciative really of the whole experience.
Beautiful. Can I ask you, so you play Queen Regent or Queen Míriel, depending on the episode, and in Numenor.
Yes.
It's occurred to me right now. So you guys switched from New Zealand to England, and I'm watching the show, and the Numenor sets are obviously huge. Does that mean that the Numenor sets were what like rebuilt in England after they were in New Zealand, or were you guys on location? How did the move affect like the Numenor scene specifically?
Well, there was definitely the sort of the shipment of sets, props, costumes, lots of things that were sort of built out over there. And then obviously we've expanded the map of Middle Earth, so you're seeing new areas, new territories, even corners of the world where maybe we've been in Numenor, but now you're in sort of a different area, and built out some of those sets. For Numenor specifically, we also filmed in the Canary Islands in Tenerife. So we did some location filming. So when you see sort of like proper coastline, as beautiful as England's beaches are, we sort of needed something maybe a little bit more Mediterranean, a little bit more fitting for Numenorian shores. So we did have a sort of a pivotal shoot that hasn't aired yet, so we haven't seen those sequences. But it gives an opportunity again to expand on the terrain and really tap into the talent pool here in the UK. So we kind of got the best of both in both locations, both countries.
There always do seem to be a ton of English actors in almost every production, so I can only imagine the talent is very, very deep over there in the UK.
Yes.
I want to ask you a specific question about because you've appeared in one episode of season two so far, the third, The Eagle and the
Yes.
Scepter. And I have to ask you what I think a lot of fans are probably thinking during that big climactic scene where Míriel is being coronated, and then an eagle shows up, and then everyone starts to root Pharazôn, Pharazôn, Pharazôn. Maybe this is just me, but what was I was thinking was, and maybe you can elucidate things for me. Was it in Míriel's head, in your head, anybody's head to say, that eagle is here for me, Farazone? Why is everybody acting like it's for you? No, it's my coronation. It's my
Yeah.
bird. Eyes back on me. Is that something that you were feeling or you think Míriel was feeling? Was anybody talking about this?
That is a fair point, and it is like, well, where are my supporters in the crowd? How come nobody sort of in that moment sort of stood up for me, or even me standing up for myself? I mean, I think what's interesting about that moment, and even interesting about Miriel's position, even before the coronation, I think even though she is the rightful heir to the throne, if we want to call it that, um, essentially been born and raised her entire life to eventually take this leadership position as is her rightful place. There is that element of the reluctant leader and the person who wonders,
Right.
am I the person that should lead my people? I think she has the love of country that Farazan also has. They have that overlap. They both believe that what they envision is the way forward, is the best way forward, and obviously have different ways of going about it. But I think there's so much sort of chaos going on,
Right.
and obviously for the terrain we have in terms of the amount of time we have, it's really in the chaos of everything that the crowd sort of takes over and chaos ensues, and it's essentially like a riot happening. And it's almost like there is no time to say, well, hey, hold on, actually the eagle's for me, guys. I don't know that she has it in her mind, and maybe there isn't certainty there. Maybe the eagle is not necessarily there for her. I mean, in my estimation, I feel like that's kind of the conversation that they have earlier in the episode about an eagle appearing as it did for her father, the king. But I think it also speaks to the division that you already start to see rumblings of in season one, that the split is already forming, and this is sort of the kickoff, really. So, perhaps in a do-over or in a fan fiction parallel universe, somebody can write the version where a lone voice calls out for me. But
maybe like Míriel's in the shower later and been like, "Oh, what I should have done is say that."
yeah, exactly.
Can I ask also, so like Míriel, Numenor, I know these aren't, it's a fake language, fake accent. I have no idea if I said them correctly just then.
That was pretty good.
How did you get kind of your mouth around that pronunciation? Do you guys have coaches? And is it something that comes naturally to you now, or do you have to like think about it when you say these made up words in this made up accent?
Well, many of us have spoken um, about our sort of amazing dialect and linguist coach, Leith McPherson, who is the person that really oversees and helps all of us with dialects, with Quenya, Sindarin, any sort of language that comes up. If you're sort of deep into Tolkien, he's a linguist himself, and really a lot of this story is born of language and languages, and sort of creating a world for these languages to kind of exist and I guess have their raison d'être, if you want to say that. I should throw some French in there. And so it's interesting to consider a world and a people's really justifying a language's evolution and existence. For us, yes, we work alongside Leith. Some people I think are just, they've got affinity for language, for accents, for rs and rolling r's and certain things. And what I think is fun for audiences is a lot of us have a dialect on for our characters, and then you kind of hear people as they are, and it's like, oh, I didn't realize they were Australian or Welsh or or Kiwi or American. And to me, it's very much a part of a character is how they sound. It's one of the things I think that allows you to sort of go on the journey with the character and really think they're of a place.
Yeah.
I think if I was Míriel or Míriel, if I was her like this, I don't think you'd be on that same journey. You would just hear Cynthia. You would just hear me as I am. Just perfectly fine for certain things.
For maybe for the arrow. Well, no, I guess you modulate your voice in that too. I mean, you're an actor. I'm sure you're changing your voice for every role you're in. Um, as for Míriel, so far we've seen her at a bit of a low ebb, and now that we're halfway through the season, I'll admit that I'm surprised that she's only shown up the once so far. Is there anything that you can tease about the second half that's coming up?
Well, I don't know how much I can tease, but obviously we know that once this sort of kickoff has happened within Numenor, and Farazan has essentially claimed, this position of power, it now does become a question of, well, what becomes of a former queen regent? What happens to her? And not only what's her position, what's her place? It's this revelation of dabbling in the equivalent of the dark arts and witchcraft. This Palantir reveal is kind of a bit like, oh my God, like that's how she's making decisions. So that's another sort of aspect of, not only has she failed Numenorians, but she's sort of using something that is controversial, essentially. And so, what becomes of her? She's not just going to kind of, uh, you know, head into the night, into the Numenorian night. So that's going to be a question of like what to do with her, what becomes of her. Does she suffer the fate of her father, Tar Palantir, who was kind of like a mad king locked in a tower, babbling about things he's seen in the Seeing Stone? Is that sort of the perception at this point that she is, kind of doomed to sort of repeat that fate? So there's a lot of interesting questions about, what do you do? How do you solve a problem like Míriel? What do you do with her? So you will see sort of that challenge, and I think I can tease that, really her ally and the person who shares the worldview alongside her is Elendil. They understand. They have sort of been through the fire together, literal and proverbial fire, and share the belief of the way forward. And me personally, in terms of the thematic element of what I think we're really exploring within Numenor and their storyline specifically, is the idea of faith and having belief in something, not religious faith per se, but in a cause or in a course. And so I think you're going to really see how they sort of apply that and navigate, the challenge ahead. So I think that's really what you're seeing is like a test of this belief system of theirs. And if what is meant to be is meant to be, can they sort of trust that that is the right set of events? Speaking very diplomatically.
I think that was excellently teased. Some
Thank
stuff,
you.
nothing too revealing. Do you think she doubts herself, Miriel? Because at this point, because we have seen that she went to Middle Earth in the first season, it was a bit of a botch. She gets back, people are more divided. And you were saying earlier that maybe I don't know why I stuck it on the bird, that maybe during the coronation, part of her maybe does think that maybe Fedozan is the right person. Like, is she what's her state of mind, I guess, now that she's facing this new challenge to her rule?
Yeah, I have to believe, and I thought a lot about, in the real world and throughout history, people in leadership positions, people who have to lead a peoples.
Mhm.
Every leader has doubt, even if it is preordained that you are the leader, you are the chosen one. It is a matter of course that at some point along the way, not only will you experience self-doubt, but you will be tested. And so each test is sort of, I guess, an opportunity to reaffirm whether you are meant to be in that position or not. So I like the idea that you can be both strong and have a conviction in your beliefs and have self-doubt at the same time. It's what makes us human. And I think it's the element or the relatable aspect to things where it's not about fear so much as a question. And at the end of the day, I suppose if Farazan was the rightful leader and that was going to set Numenor on a path, well, should that just be? I mean, if that were to sort of be the right the fated choice. Well, is that okay? Even if again throughout her whole life she's been told you're going to be queen one day, and that's that. So I think there's something quite interesting there to explore that idea of having doubt, but also being determined that your moral compass tells you that you are the force for good. You don't know about the other person, even though Farazan is her cousin, was her consigliere. They are aligned on many things, but this is where they start to split. So it's an interesting thing to consider, and I think, of course, she has doubt, but I don't think it is a doubt that then uh, paralyzes her. I think it's now about a pivot or a question of, well, what comes next, and will there be a sign that I will know what to do? I mean, she wanted to consult the Palantir because it is a bit like, well, maybe I need to see the next thing I meant to see, because don't forget in season one, the thing she does see is a giant wave hurtling toward Numenor and wiping it out. So that's very much still in her mind as well, that, am I changing the course of the vision I saw? If I go back to the Palantir, am I going to see the same thing? Am I going to see that I somehow averted it by taking the steps I took? All very interesting things to consider.
Definitely. A couple more questions for you. Going beyond the Rings of Power, I know you got The Accountant 2 coming out next year, which is pretty exciting.
Very.
Um, Beyond the Rings of Power, do you have any career goals for the future? Just any dream project like to have? Just if you could, I don't know, speak a word and speak it into existence.
Mm. Self-produced. That one word.
Yeah, I think
self
so.
self dash produced.
Ashes count. Yeah.
Yes. I am very excited in moving forward. First of all, I'm super stoked about Accountant 2. I just wrapped that in June. So I spent sort of the beginning of the year in a very different environment. It was interesting to go from Middle Earth and being fully immersed in that to returning to something that, I did the first one 8 years ago, which is wild to think it's been that long. There's still a lot of love and goodwill for that movie. It's something that I'm very proud of to this day, and I love that it's had this very long life on Netflix and on cable and on planes. Every time I sort of turn and look, someone's watching, which is amazing. So it was not only great to sort of revisit, but to get to work with a lot of the same people that were involved in the first one. Gavin O'Connor, our director, Bill Dubuque, our writer, obviously Ben, John, JK, and getting to work with Ben and John, because I did not get to work with them in the first movie. I didn't share any screen time with them. So it was an exciting opportunity to sort of like go toe to toe with those guys, and feel like I had an opportunity to really learn something from them. And I think that moving forward, what I'm excited about is not feeling like I'm waiting for the opportunities, and, having a sort of a chance to just tell the stories that I'm passionate about personally. And my husband and I are very much developing our own projects, our own ideas. And just, I think sometimes, people have a perception of you. And I love the idea of subverting people's perceptions or surprising them, or again, challenging yourself, doing something that you're like, I'm not really sure if anybody would see me this way, but I know I'm capable of more things. So I want to try, taking risks, expanding. Um, and, when you're in front of the camera, you kind of get into a rhythm and sort of know what that is. But I think being part of getting a story made from the ground up, from the development process, championing people's stories. I long to do that, and that's, I think, sort of like the next step forward for me, for sure, because I'm working with the best, and I hopefully feel like I'm absorbing and learning alongside them too. Both with directors like Gavin, who's an incredible director. Obviously, Charlotte Brandstrom on Ring, she did 4 of our episodes. She's an amazing director. So there's a lot of like great mentors, whether they know they're mentoring me or not, that I'm sort of, really admiring and picking up things from. And so yeah, that's sort of my goal for the rest of the year and beyond.
That sounds really exciting. I know we're about out of time, but can I do one more question?
Mhm.
First, I want to say that I like the little de decorations on your collar. I think those are cool.
Thank you. My little my crown jewels that on my collar.
Love it. Second, I have to ask this before you go. I don't expect an answer, but any news on the Rings of Power season 3? You're in London. Any chance you're going to walk through that door into the Numenor set?
Well, I definitely don't have an answer for you. If you somehow interview any of our powers that be and they are at liberty to tell you, then hopefully they've got an answer for you. But I certainly would say that, it goes without saying that the story
Oh
continues.
yeah.
Obviously, even beyond the scope of our series, it's the density of storytelling, and this is just looking at the second age. So, I know that all of us are primed and ready. Oh, you see what I did there? I wasn't even trying. I wasn't even trying to make the pun. Um, we are definitely looking ahead to hope that we can continue to tell this story. And I'm excited as we keep rolling the season out, because obviously we've got half the season out now. And I hope that as people continue watching week after week, they too are excited by the end to see more and are ready for more. So I think that by the time season 2 ends airing and everybody's seen what we've accomplished, I hope that, yeah, basically the vibe is let's do more. Let's tell more.
So far, so good. Cynthia, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you very much.